I don't give a bleep about nothing but the Tigers. Yeah, that's right. We're ready to talk some Missouri football here on the Tiger Kickoff Show. We welcome you in as we have Adam Busack, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley, our Missourian crew here. This turns out to be potentially one of the back-breaking weeks for the Missouri Tigers, and they might not have their starting quarterback. It's Alabama week as the Tigers are getting ready to take the trip down to Tuscaloosa as Missouri, who stands with 1 loss, takes on Alabama, who stands with 2. This really could be one of the main deciding playoff factors for the Missouri Tigers. But I want to first ask you how y'all doing before we jump into what is going to be an action-packed show here on TKS. Adam?
Jacob, I'm feeling great. Been a good week so far. Getting ready to roll down to Tuscaloosa tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good time for all involved.
First time in Alabama, I heard?
Absolutely.
Davis?
Yeah, I'm doing well also. And it will also be my first time in Tuscaloosa. So I'm excited.
So the Texas kid takes over the South in Alabama, and Amelia, the St. Louis girl, taking the trip down. Have you been to Alabama before?
I have not, no.
Wow.
I'm excited for the trip. I wrote 3 articles yesterday for the Missourian on the Tigers, so my mind is very much on Missouri right now. I'm excited for the show.
I think there's an odd, ominous feeling in the air for the Tiger fans because Missouri, after the win over Auburn, 21-17, Brady Cook comes back. We talked about it on Monday, all the energy, the passion. The Tigers are back. But Brady Cook listed as doubtful on the injury report. So let's dig into this right now because this determines basically everything for the Tigers. We saw a Brady Cookless Missouri Tigers offense on Saturday, and it did not look good for Missouri. Drew Pine took over. He was 10 of 21, which is not the best in the world, 78 yards. Brady Cook, also 11 of 22 with 194, and obviously Brady Cook goes down early and then comes back in the late third quarter and wins that game for Missouri. So let's talk about it. Is it even in question that Missouri, they can have success offensively with Pine?
I'll say this, Jacob. As bad as Drew Pine looked last week, I don't think you're ever going to see him look that bad again if he gets more snaps for Missouri. He was very clearly, in my opinion, not ready to be thrust into that starting quarterback role, not ready to kind of be the pilot of the offense last week. To a certain degree, I think that's kind of on Drinkwitz and the coaching staff for not preparing him in case he has to step up. But whatever the case is, Drew Pine was clearly not ready. Now this week, we know that Brady Cook has been limited in practice. We don't necessarily know the extent to which he's been practicing because media has been closed out of practices this week. But we know that to a certain extent, Brady Cook has not been full speed. That's why he's listed as doubtful currently. That means Drew Pine has been getting the ones reps. And with a full week of practice getting the ones reps, I think his wide receivers are going to be a little bit more on the same page with him. That was his biggest issue last week. His wide receivers had no idea when the ball was coming their way. He didn't necessarily know how to communicate that to them. That's the reason you saw that completion percentage below 50%. I don't think Drew Pine will look that bad this week if he has to play. That being said, if he does have to play, it's not going to be a great game for Missouri. It just isn't.
You mentioned communication with receivers. Communication is going to be tough in an environment as Bryant-Denton Stadium is. We saw it at Kyle Field in Texas A&M. Drinkwitz, he talked about it in his presser, saying that they've taken away some lessons in terms of simplifying the offense. He said a quote on the Paul Feinbaum show where the players win the game on the field. You don't win it. Coaches try to win it up in the press box. But Davis, what are your thoughts here on the whole situation? Obviously, Drew Pine is not an ideal starter for Missouri. You want your starting quarterback, Brady Cook, healthy and going, but that might not be a possibility come Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the offense looks a lot different with Drew Pine in there instead of Brady Cook. And one fun fact I actually learned recently was Drew Pine is 1 for 1 on passing attempts against Alabama. He got in and threw one pass in a playoff game when he was with Notre Dame. So he's 100% accurate against Alabama, which is a good sign.
Hopefully he can keep that up.
Hopefully he can keep that up. And if he does, I have a hard time seeing Missouri lose. But I don't think that will be the case. He had some real accuracy problems against Auburn, clearly disconnected from his wide receivers. You would hope that a full week taking the 1 reps helps remedy that, but I think the Tigers really need to be hoping that Brady Cook can go.
Another thing Eli Drinkwitz talks about is that passion, that fire of Brady Cook, and how his team rallies around him. going into one of the most hostile environments of all of college football, with one of the most hostile fan bases, can the Tigers rally around Drew Pine? Can he be the guy, or does it need to be Brady Cook under center for the Tigers to go in and win in an environment that has statistically been a very tough place to win in?
Based on what we've heard from just general team morale in press conferences between Drinkwitz and other players, yes, I know that, or I believe that they see Cook as their captain, but I don't think that they would take away from that energy if Pine had to go in. I think this team is really just focused on being 1-0, like we've heard all season. Whoever's leading the team, I think they're going to, no matter what, still have that same passion and fire. They're going to need it in Alabama this weekend.
The thing that makes this game so intriguing is obviously Brady Cook listed as doubtful. So that raises a lot of questions as to the Tigers' chances to beating Alabama. But with Missouri already having one loss, coming on the road at College Station, and you saw Missouri pick up a win against an Auburn team and drop 2 spots in the poll, obviously the poll and the college football playoff format, it matters at the end of the year when they're deciding these teams who should be in, who should be out. Is this a game that the Tigers need to win to be in the college football playoff? And if so, why? Starting with you, Adam.
I have said for a long time, I think since we really found out that the college football playoff was going to expand to 12 teams, that just with the amount of respect that SEC teams tend to get, that the SEC conference as a whole tends to get, I think that the committee is going to have a very, very difficult time keeping any SEC team at 10-2 out of the playoff. Now, this year's unique because there's a lot of teams that can go 10-2. I think it was Eli Hoff had a tweet last week that said that there was a scenario where there were 8 different teams in the SEC that finished 10-2. That's not going to happen. There was never a universe that was going to happen. But if there's 5 different teams that go 10-2, I don't know that all 5 of them are in. Missouri's going to need a good win at some point. Maybe it's going to come against Oklahoma, but Oklahoma hasn't looked particularly good so far either. You already have a ranked win over Boston College, but maybe Boston College isn't as good as people thought they were. I think this game is very important to Missouri because you need to build that resume to a certain extent. If they lose this game, I don't think their season's done quite yet.
So the same sentiment from you, Davis, or the playoffs on the line here, or like Adam said, if you lose this game, can you still recover going forward? Again, Alabama, they were the #1 ranked team in the country at some point before they got upset by Vanderbilt, who Missouri narrowly edged out in double OT.
I actually think that if they lose, I don't see a way they get enough quality wins to make the playoff. The way the SEC is shaping out, there's going to be a lot of 10-2 teams potentially. And when you look ahead on the schedule, before the season, I said that if they went 10-2, they would get in. I had them losing to Texas A&M and to Alabama before the season, and I thought that would be enough. But now you look at the schedule ahead, Oklahoma will not be, they are not as good as we anticipated. South Carolina is kind of this up and down team. You never really know what you're going to get. Mississippi State is not very good. Arkansas is not a quality win in my opinion. So if they lose this game, I don't see enough quality wins on the schedule. If you go 10-2 in this scenario, your best win is Boston College or an okay Oklahoma team. I'm not sure that's enough.
And Amelia?
You know, I wrote an article a couple weeks ago on how parity in college football is creating a lot more Cinderella teams and kind of normalizing that. And I think we've seen that this year with such an even playing field. There's so many factors that go into that, and something that I really focused on when writing that story was, is it possible even now before this game for Mizzou to make the playoffs? You got to keep in mind, even if they lose here, there's still a way that they can prove something. If you can hold Alabama and you can lose by just a score, I think that's still going to be really impressive, almost as impressive as if you did get that win. Now, if Missouri gets blown out like they did at Texas A&M, I don't see any chances. Like Adam and Davis both said, this is the last ranked opponent that Missouri has on their schedule for the season, at least as of right now. So it's, I don't know, since there's going to be so many 10-2 teams, you would need Missouri to be consistently playing at a strong level. And I think, like we've said throughout most of the show, they just haven't really connected on a lot of aspects of the ball yet. They haven't, like you said last show, they haven't played one full game yet. And so I think because of that, we're already halfway through the season. I don't know that they could unless they got a win out of this weekend.
Yeah, and we'll see how everything shakes out. Everything this year in college football has been crazy. Everything's been shaken and skewed, and we'll see at the end of the year how everything shakes out. Now, the one interesting aspect, again, all this is Brady Cook might not be playing football. So we went out and we asked our viewers question, essentially, saying, what questions do you have for us? We got a really interesting response coming from Jonathan Lidskin, who tweeted at us today, and he asked us this question here. If Drew Pine starts, what fashion can Mizzou lose in and still use the argument of we didn't have Brady Cook in the college playoff football discussion? Now, I think this is a really interesting tweet here for us to discuss because obviously, if Brady Cook is not on the field, that is not the Missouri Tigers' fault if they go into Tuscaloosa and necessarily get blown out. But by what margin do they have to keep it a game to say, hey, we never starting quarterback. He came back next week. Missouri wins out. We're still a good team. But yes, we did lose at Alabama. Is that a point that they can use? Remember last year with Florida State, the whole discussion of their starting quarterback goes down. They were an undefeated team. They get left out of the college football playoff. Is that the precedent that has been set, or can that be different this year? Really interesting question. We'll start with you, Adam.
Yeah, well, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, just starting with Florida State last year, you saw a team go undefeated in a supposed Power 5 conference in the ACC and get left out entirely of the 4-team playoff. Now, it's important to note that the 4-team playoff and the 12-team playoff are very different, and the committees that are selecting for these playoffs are different as well. However, based off of the precedent that we have from before, and that's all you can do is base this off of precedent. Based off of the precedent we have before from last year's Florida State team, if Missouri is without their starting quarterback in Brady Cook, that's not the same Missouri team, and the committee will not look at them the same way. That penalized Florida State. I think for Missouri, that's going to boost them up. I think to a certain extent, if Missouri is without Brady Cook and they lose the game, it almost doesn't matter how badly they lose the game. If Brady comes back and is healthy and wins out the rest of the way, that game is almost just completely wiped off the board, in my opinion. Interesting
take. Is it same reasoning for you, Davis? Because obviously there are other aspects to a football game outside just the quarterback position. Do those play into how strongly this Missouri team can contend and potentially the eyes of the college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Brady Cook doesn't play, I think it's really hard to judge that game because the offense with Drew Pine is not the same offense with Brady Cook. Even though so far this year the offense with Brady Cook hasn't been as explosive as we thought, it is still significantly better than when Drew Pine is out there. So I agree with Adam. I don't think you can really look at this game and say, all right, Mizzou got blown out by Alabama without their starting quarterback. Let's penalize them for that. I don't think that is something that the committee will do. I do think that if the defense looks really good, if they are able to keep it somewhat close, shut down Alabama's offense, I think that'll help them a lot in the eyes of the committee. But I really don't think that if Brady Cook doesn't play and they get blown out, I'm not sure how much that really hurts them down the line, especially if they go ahead and win out the rest of the way.
Now, Amelia, we saw the AP poll penalize Missouri for not having Brady Cook in the game. They won the game. They came back. But Missouri did not look good enough, and according to standards, against Auburn to move up in the poll or stay at their spot in 19. Instead, they fall 2 spots back. Do you think the college football playoff will have that same consideration of kind of ignoring the fact that Brady Cook was out for the game and just viewing the loss as Alabama as a team collective? Or do you think they really will look at Brady Cook specifically and saying, hey, he's the heart and soul of this team, can't really win without a quarterback that's been proven in football the last decade or so? Is that something that you see in consideration for the poll?
You know, that's a really hard question because I honestly, off the top of my head, like you never really, yes, you have the guidelines that they publish that they're going to be referring to whenever they're making these polls and these selections, but you don't really know what's going on inside their head. So it's kind of hard to predict that. I will say, I want to echo something that Davis said. If Missouri's defense can really play strongly like they did against Auburn in Tuscaloosa, then I see this game definitely being easier to judge for pollers.
And defense is something that's definitely going to have to show up for these Missouri Tigers, whether Cook's playing injured or not. And we'll discuss that coming up next in Who's Cooking? All right, welcome welcome into Who's Cooking, the only segment in Missouri history where we hold a pot and a ladle and discuss what players are going to boom in this week's upcoming matchup against Alabama. As always, Adam holds the pot. He's the only one talking. He gets the ladle, too, this time. And he'll tell us what players he expects to boom. Now, last week, I will ask you, Adam, we saw Missouri have to lean on that rushing attack. They only had under 90 yards as a team rushing. Is it the rushing attack or the defense that's going to have to come through if Brady Cook's not starting at quarterback?
I am going to opt towards the defense. I think very quietly and maybe a little bit under the radar last week, they had their best game of the season, especially in the second half. I thought the Missouri defense was absolutely phenomenal, especially that defensive end room, that defensive line in general. They're without Joe Moore, right? We lost him for the season a couple weeks back. But I think even without him, they had their strongest game of the season. For me, what's going to have to cook for Missouri to have a very strong game is that defensive line. Jaden Milroe is a very, very dynamic quarterback for Alabama. The line's going to have to be able to contain him. If they can get a sack, maybe 2 sacks, that's going to be very, very important to Missouri's success as a team. Now, of course, if I'm feeding a team of defensive linemen, Jacob, you know they eat a lot. So what I'm cooking is everything. I am cooking everything for this D-line. I'm trying to keep everybody fed. We're just going to have a good time all around. It's a potluck. What can I say?
Colorado man like a mountain goat, just feeding them whatever they can eat up. We'll see if Davis is the same sentence.
I'm actually going to go with Marcus Carroll, and honestly, the rest of the running back room, Jamal Roberts and Kewan Lacey. Nate Noel is doubtful heading into this game as of now. Missouri's pretty much been without him for the last maybe 1.5 games, and Marcus Carroll has handled that pretty well. I think Jamal Roberts is going to get some increased opportunity along with Kewan Lacey, who I actually think is one of the best runners on that team. So that is the position group I'll take, specifically Marcus Carroll. He has 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, so he has been cooking for the Missouri offense. And my food that I'm making, I really had forgotten about this part, but I'm going to say macaroni and cheese.
Wow. You stole my dish.
Only because, one, a bit of a southern side, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And secondly, it looks like there's some remnants of it here, if the viewer can see. Jacob may not have cleaned off the cheese properly. So that is my pick for who's cooking.
That was great.
It was good mac and cheese.
It looks good. It looks good if it was, a week ago.
It was fresh.
I mean,
Oh my god, I
our
can't.
cameraman Zach Morrison loves mac and cheese, so
Lovely.
maybe I'll blame it on him. It was definitely me, but I'll blame it on him. Amelia?
Okay, I know that you start off this question with the hypothetical that Cook is out. I'm going to say who needs to be cooking is Cook. He needs to cook up some concoction to get him in this game. I think.
Ooh.
I know, pretty cool. No, I think that this is going to be a legacy game for Cook and Burden if they'll let it. Right now, Alabama has some weakness in the secondary. They've got a few injuries going on right now. So Cook needs to be able to they need Cook's arm in this game in order to get that passing attack going, to get points on the board. I really see if Cook can come in and he can do whatever he did against Auburn to get in this game and play strong for however long he can, I really do see that taking Missouri to at least holding this game. Now my dish, bear with me with this. I don't think this is going to be a smooth game. It's going to be kind of a rocky texture. It's not really going to be sweet either, I don't think, in the outcome. And when you look at this game in, stacked up against some other games for Missouri this season, this might not be the one that you want to rewatch right away, depending on the injury status. Whenever we're looking at pies, I don't always go for pecan pie. But I think that is going to be the dish for this game. I think that it's going to be a little rocky. I don't think it's going to necessarily be sweet, but it's going to be a dessert. So that's going to be my dish.
Yeah, it's not the healthiest thing for you either, and I think there might be some Tiger fans with the heart rate accelerating down there in Alabama and enemy territory. I think for me, originally, my dish, I'll start with my dish even before my player. Originally for me, my dish was going to be macaroni and cheese.
We can share it.
No. I'm switching things up for you, Davis. I got to keep it real.
All right.
Broadcast journalists got to think on the fly,
Fair enough.
right? It was going to be mac and cheese because if Cook does not start this game, I think Missouri fans are going to need a little comfort food. And mac and cheese is my go-to whenever I'm feeling down or if it's a rainy day, stuck inside. Some more mac and cheese, it'll cheer you right up. The Kraft mac and cheese commercials going on right now, they have like the self-care commercials. I don't know if you guys see them or not, but nothing like Kraft mac and cheese to bring a smile to somebody's face. But I'm going to change things up here. And for my dish, spooky season, fellas, I'm going to go with some witch's stew. Because this is a PSA to all Missouri Tiger fans out there. If you know any witches in the area that can cook up a magical spell to get Brady Cook healthy and back in this game, maybe that's the secret MU Healthcare has. They said they tried 3 things with Brady Cook at the presser. The first 2 didn't work. The third did, and it got Brady Cook back on the field. You never know what dark magic is going on over there to get Brady Cook back in the game. I think maybe, it's a witch's stew. Sometimes the spell works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're eating eyeballs and it doesn't work. So I think that's what it could be for Missouri. Brady Cook comes in this game. I think just heard our producer yell, "What?" I think for Missouri, if the spell works and Brady Cook's able to play, there is a chance here for the Tigers to upset and do the impossible and prove everybody wrong. Something to prove down in Alabama and continue Missouri on the magical 2 years that they've had under Brady Cook. But I think you could be eating something pretty ugly as well if things turn south down there in the Alabama and Tuscaloosa. So that's all we got here for Who's Cooking. Let's talk about what we're here for, our score predictions in this ballgame. Now, I will give you the caveat that you can put an asterisk next to your score prediction, because I have a feeling if Brady Cook plays this game, it's going to be a little bit different of an outlook than if Drew Pine plays this game. So I will make you have the option to put a caveat. Adam Busak, let's hear your take.
Well, I like that you gave me an out to begin with, Jacob, because I'm going to take that route out to begin with. If Drew Pine starts this game, Missouri will not win. To me, it's as simple as that. Now, that being said, if Brady Cook does start this game, this Alabama team is not the same Alabama team as we have seen over the last 2 decades of college football, right? This is not Nick Saban's Alabama anymore. It's Kellen DeBoer's. I said before the season that I thought that DeBoer was not a great hire for Alabama. In fact, I think I went so far as to say that I thought that Mike Elko at Texas A&M was a better hire than DeBoer at Alabama. And for that reason, on our season preview, I said that I thought that Missouri would lose at Texas A&M and they would rebound and they would win at Alabama. I don't feel as confident in that as I did before the season started, just based off of seeing the team play the way that I've seen them play over the last 7 games. It's going to be a tough struggle for Missouri to win this game just because in Tuscaloosa, it's a very hard place to play. Missouri does not play well on the road. Historically, under Drinkwitz, they lose about twice as often as they win on the road. But at the same time, if Missouri goes to Tuscaloosa and wins this game, and I change my preseason prediction, I would never let myself live it down. And so for that reason, I'm sticking with Missouri. I think the Tigers find a way to get this game done. 21-18 is my final score. Missouri will be coming back to Columbia riding high and still with only 1 loss.
I like it. Davis?
Yeah, I didn't know you were going to give me an out. So I tried to kind of split the middle. I said 30-21 Alabama, although if Brady Cook plays and he's able to really play and be productive, I do think there's a really realistic chance that Missouri can win this game. Like Adam said, this Alabama team is not the Nick Saban teams we've seen. Typically when you go into Tuscaloosa, you're going to have to deal with a really tough and stout defense. Alabama's defense this year has given up yards and given up points. So I think Missouri's offense, if Brady Cook is in there, has the potential and the opportunity to score points, gain yards. But I do still think that it's a tough place to play. Alabama's offense, Jalen Milroe has had a bit of an up and down year, but he's a really good player, another guy who can extend plays with his legs at the quarterback position. So I'm not super confident in my prediction. I think it could go many different ways depending on, this long laundry list of injuries that Missouri has, depending on how that shapes up. There's a lot of ways this could go, but I do have right now 30-21 Alabama.
12 impact players are on the injury report for the Missouri Tigers. 12. It's the most I've seen in the 3 years that I've been here. Amelia, is your take similar here between Brady Cook and Drew Pine so far? These two have both said if Pine's in, it's almost nearly a guaranteed loss for the Tigers. If Cook's in, there's still hope. Are you of the same thought?
Yeah, let me walk you through my thought process here because I think I'm on a different thinking path here. When we're thinking of Alabama's team, I don't think that this is a significantly different team under DeBoer than it was under Saban. I mean, I know that DeBoer's taking a lot of heat right now because of those losses to Vanderbilt and Tennessee and that close game to South Carolina, but you got to keep in mind, with NIL, the transfer portal, the 12-team playoff even, parity is really going through, not just SEC teams, but a lot of college football teams in general. I think everyone's forgetting that whenever a coach is in their first year, there's going to be some rockiness. Obviously, that's what we're seeing with DeBoer right now. And, when you're replacing such a legendary coach like Saban, you're going to garner a lot more heat for that. But Alabama has some weapons on their team. I don't think we mentioned this yet, too, but not just are the Tigers visiting Bryant-Denny Stadium, which is almost the same size as Texas A&M Stadium. It's also Alabama's homecoming this weekend. And coming off, as we saw at homecoming at Mizzou, that was a big environment with all the passion, the alumni. That is just going to translate into an even bigger venue this weekend. We saw how Missouri responded under pressure. It wasn't very strong. So I'm going to not take your out, and I'm going to keep my score prediction for, I don't think it's going to be the same if Pine versus Cook are in it. But I'm going to still say I think this is going to be a loss for Mizzou. I think it's going to be a larger gap between the score. I originally said 34-13. I'm going to stick with that.
All right. Well, you heard it here. One Mizzou, Bama. Let's take a look at the graphic. I have Alabama winning this as well. Again, for me, this really depends. You saw it firsthand here at home against Auburn. Brady Cook's Missouri Tigers are a different team than Drew Pine's Missouri Tigers. And that's nothing against Pine. You mentioned he's 1-for-1 against Alabama in passing completions. And he's a solid backup quarterback, but you're talking about Alabama here. And I get it. They lost to Vanderbilt. They've had some tough losses so far. They're still a team that beat Georgia, who just beat #1 Texas. The SEC has beat itself up this year, but in order to do so, you need to be a good team. And with Brady Cook under center, again, it's a different Missouri Tigers team. And even if Brady Cook is under center, who knows how mobile he's going to be on that ankle. Again, Bama's still got a very good D-line. They're one of the most talented rosters in the country. It was going to be a tough test for the Tigers with Brady Cook fully healthy. And now he's injured, doubtful, potentially not playing. That's why I have Alabama winning this one 34-18. But we thank you all again here for tuning into this episode of the Tiger Kickoff Show. Hopefully we were able to give you a little insight there. Again, more clarity will come out as we get closer to Saturday as to who will be the starting quarterback. Again, fingers crossed on Brady Cook. Maybe that witch's brew will have some magic. Adam and I will be spelling something up here. Right? We can cook something up, some magical spells. Maybe Davis will get on it. Amelia can throw in. What would you add to a witch's stew, Amelia? What do you think would do the magic trick to get Brady Cook back and healthy?
I don't know.
She doesn't know. That's okay.
We should
Maybe
on the show. I think you need a strong concoction.
A strong concoction. Well, you heard it here first. Adam Davis, any last things to throw in the pot?
Oh, maybe some moonshine.
Ooh, wow, okay. Adam's throwing in bourbon, we know that for sure. Well, thank you one more time for listening to the Tiger Kickoff Show. Adam Busak, Davis Wilson, Amelia Hurley, your Tiger Kickoff Show crew from the Missourian, as we wish you a good Thursday night, and we'll see you on Monday.